Oh, all right. So, welcome everyone. Excited to be doing this with my buddy Jay Dawson, who I met through Edwin Orister. And we're going to be speaking with you guys about Rituals of Man, which is an amazing experience that I got to experience. Was it like a month and a half ago?
About that. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll be sharing with you it's been a really interesting experience. It was my first like true men's retreat that I've done. So yeah, I'm excited to dig a little bit deeper into
Sure.
why you created this community, the vision behind it, and then I'll share some of my takeaways and I would love to hear from your perspective as a facilitator what it was like on your end as well.
Sure, sure.
So this is going to be exciting. If you're interested, please reach out to any one of us, or Edwin, or Mike Dennedy as well, or Kaylin Moon, and we'll be able to provide you more information in regards to it. But yeah, let's kick it off. So Jay, welcome to the live stream. I know you're excited to talk about
Yeah,
this.
glad to be here. Glad to be here. I don't know if excited is the word. A little nervous, but you know what though? That's what it's all about. Getting outside of our comfort zones. And had the pleasure of meeting Davidson through a mutual friend of ours, Edwin, who's also a facilitator. And we went live for our first Rituals of Man event late April, early May of last month. So the first event was definitely a transformational one for everybody involved. And I think you wanted to know a little bit more about why we started this, why we got into this.
Yeah.
I think for each facilitator it might be a little bit different, but there's a lot of things that overlap. For myself, I first got into men's work as a participant 3 years ago. And I got into it because, there wasn't a lot, outside of corporate America and outside of sports teams and, hanging out with the friends. There really wasn't a lot around what I would call men's work. And there's a lot of things that as a man I deal with, and outside of a significant other, there wasn't somebody to speak to somebody to speak to someone about. And sometimes the workplace, although it should be a safe environment,
Mm,
doesn't always feel like a safe space to talk through certain things, to work on certain things. And so this is
mm,
an environment where you can show up as yourself, as your most authentic self, and work on that self. So for speaking for me, that's what men's work was for me. It's
mm,
about brotherhood, and there's so taking a step back from the whole corporate piece of it. There used to be in more tribal times like a ritual, right? There are or
mm,
rites of passage that as a man you go through, and we've lost that.
mm,
We used to be out, in the field, in the forest, all these different things, and now we're inside of an air
mm,
conditioned room all the time.
mm,
And honestly, there's certain things. There's a lot of pros to that, but there's some things that get lost in that as well. And so Rituals
mm,
of Man helps to get in touch with, helped me to get in touch with more of those my primal instinct, right? To trust my gut, to trust my ability to decide, to make a decision, to go forward, to be comfortable being a man, right? There's a lot going on right now, and for good reason, but there's a lot of things in society that really impacts a man feeling like it's okay to be a man. And so what this is doing is, it's really creating a safe space for healthy masculinity. You've probably heard the term of toxic masculinity in the workplace, at home, in all these
mm,
different areas of life. So this really helps men, it helps myself and others who have come into this work to be able to deal with some of those underlying emotions that don't get to get expressed all the time. And when they don't get to get expressed, they come out in distorted ways. So we get to deal with all that stuff there.
mm.
I could keep going on, but I don't know if you want to make a comment on what I just
Ye-
said.
Yeah, it's brilliant, right? I think to your point, men, especially in the workplace, right? We put on a facade like everything's okay, and
Yeah.
it's like, and I get it as a leader, you don't want to show weakness and vulnerability. People could kind of take advantage of you, right? But at the end of the day, we live in a world that is so transactional, and it feels like, oh, like everyone wants something from me. So I love what you've created with Edwin and Kaylin and everyone there, and just the container that you've created is very sacred, right? It's very intentional. It was actually like really moving to see just like the level of attention to detail, the care, the love, and it's like unconditional, like there was it
Sure.
was a, it was a safe space to be free, to be open, not to be judged. And yeah, I really appreciated that.
Can you maybe explain so it's not coming from me, right? Like maybe what one of your biggest takeaways or biggest
Mm,
takeaways were from that event.
mm,
And feel free to be specific as well.
yeah. Yeah, I got off the call with Mike
Mhm,
the last weekend, and it was such a deep conversation. He really like cared for me, and it's like, oh man, like I haven't spoken with him since the event, but I I was just touched by just the level of vulnerability. He was like talking about his his relationship and some of the struggles there, and I'm like, this is the second conversation I've had with the guy outside of the reach, outside of that container, and he's like going deep into like some very very personal things. I'm like, wow, like how refreshing is it to like have a honest, real conversation about like some of our problems and versus like in the real world or with most other communities, it's like you don't get there until like year 5 or people just don't even talk about it in general, right? So that really like touched like my heart because I felt like I felt so connected to him and it was very genuine. I was like, wow, like this guy really cares about me. This is
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, right? Just to add on to what you're saying and what my experience has been, it's not made always acceptable for us as men to talk as men or to share the more personal or the more delicate details of our
Mm,
lives. Normally, that's saved for a significant other. And
mm,
outside of that, there's really no one to speak to about these things. And then sometimes,
mm,
it being in a workplace, right, may not always feel like the safest space, especially if there's not trust there. Now,
mm,
with something like a rituals with man, as this grows and as people embody more and more of this, the goal is that the workplace becomes more and more of a safe space to speak about these things. But the
mm,
point is that and speaking for myself as well, what I gained from this is a sense of brotherhood, right? Like if I'm going through
mm,
something, if Dave is going through something, right? There's people, from the retreat or that,
mm,
who I've from my very first retreat, there's people from 3 years ago that I still stay in contact with
mm,
and we speak on a weekly basis. And if one of us is dealing with something, like, at least one brother is available to jump on a call for us to really
mm,
dive deep into what's going on and to receive feedback
mm,
in a non-judgmental way, right? And so what you're speaking about is something that I think a lot of people experience and something that we
mm,
really want to call into it. And you know, there's a saying that brotherhood is the medicine, right? And I know I'm speaking to more of a professional audience right now, but they're saying that brotherhood is the medicine, and um, you, a person will know what that means once they go through this
mm,
experience. And the thing is, like, it's more than just the initial retreat. It's the consistency of applying, what's been learned at the retreat.
mm,
It's there's certain rituals or routines that become a part of the daily life that will change the way that
mm,
you or a person perceives life and just makes it way more beautiful. So I'll speak for myself. How does this apply to the workplace? For me, I'm able to bring more harmony to the workplace because now I do a men's retreat, I facilitate a men's retreat, I'm meeting all these uncomfortable edges, people that may not look anything like me, that may be in a
mm,
complete different age bracket or come up from completely different, you know, just situation in general. That will bring up stuff it brings up stuff within me, and it will likely bring up stuff with someone who's never been to an event like that before. And the beautiful thing is, because I've worked through those edges
mm,
from a proactive space, now if I'm at work, I need to deal with a coworker, a
mm,
manager, someone who's reporting to me, right? I can do so in a way that's direct, but I still have a level of compassion, but my point gets across and I'm
mm,
respected and we're hearing each other because I'm working on these skills outside of work. And sometimes, I don't know if you ever experienced it, but I have been the person to display this, and I've had it expressed towards me, but like that passive aggressiveness, right? So
mm,
all that passive aggressive behavior that you'll see in a workplace, in a space like Bridges with a Man, you get to work on that so that there's no passiveness, there's no aggressiveness, there's just
mm,
assertiveness and directness, and it's coming from a place of love. So the person that's being spoken to knows that they're cared about and they can
mm,
receive the message. Now you're getting more stuff done, right? And so
mm,
I work for a cybersecurity company. So, I have the pleasure of working with two amazing, sales engineers and I'm able to be
Mm.
super direct with them, but we also have a lot of fun, right? If I need something done, they're very responsive and they're very helpful. And we don't have to worry about, walking around each other's toes because we have that level of trust and
Hmm.
respect for each other.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Because it's like, okay, I had all these breakthroughs during the weekend,
Yeah.
right? But it's like, how do I actively apply it in real life?
Hmm.
So I would say more specific to the workforce, because to your point, most of the LinkedIn audience, like the context is usually business related, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I would say for me specifically, in business, like you deal with a lot of other men, right? And even if you deal with women, right, there's certain I'll just use myself for example. Like I tend to have more people recovering people pleasing
mhm,
tendencies. So it's like, okay, how do I communicate like and assert my opinions and my feelings in life, right? And especially in work, right? It's like I'm able to be more direct, right? I'm able to practice and then just even asking for what I want, right? Like that I think since then I've been much more communicative with like not only my wife, right,
mhm.
but with my clients. It's like I'm able to set boundaries. I'm able to be like,
Yes.
hey, this is not a good fit. And
Mhm.
instead of just dragging on like what I was doing prior to the trainings and some of the practices that
Yeah.
you've facilitated.
I love that you said that. Boundaries, standards, right? Being clear about that in the workplace, at home. Like these are all things that really get to um, come through in this type of work. And I want to add to that. I hope I don't lose my train of thought. And I may have lost my train of thought, so it'll come back to me at the right time. But yeah, these are definitely the types of things that come through in these events. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Right? How does this like how does this apply to the workplace? Right?
Hmm.
Um, because you're dealing with parts of yourself that may have been pushed down or
Hmm.
neglected or whatever, and they're brought to the surface in these types of containers.
Hmm.
Right now that they're being addressed and they become now an integrated part of you.
Hmm.
Now, when you're in the workspace, right, and those same parts of you that you used to push down are being triggered or activated, you're now more in command of yourself. And now that you're more in command of yourself, you're more in command of whatever room that you're walking into. So it doesn't matter who's on the phone. It could be 5 people, 10 people on the phone, it could be one
Hmm.
person, could just be you, right? Whatever it is, you're now more in command of yourself, of your energy, how you direct it,
Hmm.
and not feeling like out of control of things. And
Hmm.
that's a beautiful thing that starts to come through men's work because masculine energy is truly about, direction,
Hmm.
command, assertiveness, sometimes
Hmm.
aggressiveness, but I mean that in a healthy way
Hmm.
when needed to set those boundaries, to get something done. These are
Hmm.
all these are all things that we get to tap into. Are there specific activities, David, that you did that you were part of that stick out to you from the Rituals of Man event?
Yeah, I mean, not to give everything away,
Yeah.
but we'll give you guys some teasers, just to keep it interesting, So, but we also want you to discover for yourself, right? So I'll preface it by not sharing everything, but I'll share my experience. So the two most memorable, and I was reflecting on this with Michael as well, is the sacred mirrors was very very powerful,
Yeah.
and every man that I did that exercise with, oh my god, man, it was like it's even hard to describe. It's like something that you truly have to experience.
Mhm.
But it was super connected, very spiritual, like probably one of the most spiritual experiences I've ever had in my life. Top five for sure. Um, I just felt seen. I felt recreated. I felt like literally I felt very connected, to the universe, to other men, to myself, to just, my heritage, my ancestors, right? It was very sacred. Um that was very powerful. And there's two physical activities that I won't share the details, but that was also really cool because to your point, like I haven't done very ritual like I haven't done that many ritual. I mean, when I joined the fraternity, that was like the only other instances where I did something somewhat
Sure,
similar,
sure,
but
sure.
that was like 2000, that was 2007, right? So it's been 14 years, and I definitely pushed like the boundaries, like physically. I was like, wow, like challenging someone that was like heavier and taller than me. So I felt like I was able to like push that boundary and see
Mm.
what I was capable of. And there was an exercise that was like very raw that it's hard to describe.
If you need to give away one, it's okay.
Okay,
Yeah, we
okay.
won't, because there's so many things that we haven't even done yet.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's okay.
I would say there was okay. Oh, the sauna was like that was pushing. Ooh, I saw you were. I think you were struggling.
That was my toughest one too.
Ooh, that
You
was.
do you want to touch on that? You want to touch on your experience?
We can both kind of
Yeah,
share our
yeah,
experience.
absolutely, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
there was one of the rituals that like definitely put like I always pride my like I always joke around with my friends. I'm like, oh, I have Vietnamese heritage. Like I can handle any heat. Like my ancestors literally were like super close to the equator, right? So I was like coming in with my ego, like I got this shit, man. Like no problem.
Mhm.
And there were times where I was just like, woo, like oh man, and that was amazing because there hasn't been many times in my life where I felt like tested. Like I think I had to run out actually because it was so hot
Yeah,
for a
I did as
second.
well.
And oh yeah,
Yeah,
and part of my ego is like, oh my, yeah, I couldn't tough it out. But you know what? It's like, hey, like I'm proud of myself, like, and just the honor, like that's I tried the best I could. But yeah, that's
sure.
something that next time around I'll definitely push myself
Yeah.
a bit more.
This is a really cool experience. So I'll get even a little bit more descriptive with what we did, right? So on our 45 acres of land, right, we've got a sauna. And I've been in a sauna before, but this was more like maybe like a sweat lodge version of the sauna. So basically, one of the other facilitators who owns the sauna, he's taking water and he's pouring it on the rocks. Every time he pours on the rocks, the sauna gets 5 to 10 degrees hotter. So you might pour it on the rocks 3, 4, 5 times, and I'm in there, and my ego or whatever you want to call it, the part of me that was in fear is saying, Jason, you're gonna die. Your skin's gonna burn off. This isn't right. Like, what is going on? Like, I didn't sign up for this, even though I'm a facilitator myself, right? And so but that's a beautiful thing. Even as facilitators, we still be edges get met regardless, right? And for me, the pattern that came up were the times where, because there were 2 times. There was one time where I also ran out. Full disclosure, I ran out one time myself. Edges were being pushed, and
Yeah.
there was a second time where I was about to run out, and Kalen, he's the other facilitator. He's the person who has a sauna. Said, Jason, stay in. We're almost done. Put this towel on
Mm.
your
Oh,
head.
I remember that.
We're almost finished.
That was so cool. Yeah.
And so when he said that to me, I just I felt in that moment very down on myself, because what that
Mm.
brought up for me was the times in my life where I was so close to
Mm.
reaching my goal
Ooh.
and I quit. Not every time, but enough times for that to come up within my awareness at that point in time. And so from that moment on, for myself, my goal and promise to myself was to never ever give up ever ever again.
Mm.
But that came up in a sauna exercise.
Mm.
So these are the types of things, like you don't, like, if for a person coming into something like this, you don't even know what's going to come up for you, and you don't even know when it's going to happen. In this instance, it was the heat that brought it up for me,
Mm.
an uncomfortable physical environment. So that was a really cool experience, I think, for a lot of the brothers. I think a lot of eddies were met there. And let me even talk more about the types of people that come,
Mm.
right? Because we're two professionals here. You worked
Mhm.
for what some companies you worked for in the past, just to kind of give people the
Oh yeah, yeah. I've worked at like Fortune magazine,
fortune. Yeah, yeah,
Trinet, LinkedIn, Udemy, like
yeah.
yeah, a lot of like Fortune 500 companies and
Exactly. And,
yeah.
and currently I work for a Fortune 500 company. I've been in the tech space, most of my career, all of my career basically. And the men out of there, we had owners of companies there. We had some blue collar workers. So we had men of all different areas of life. So we're all coming in, owners, tech people, salespeople, all these different, construction workers. And we're all coming together for this goal of empowerment and brotherhood. And these rituals or these exercises that are so outside the norm of what you would encounter in our normal American everyday life,
Mhm.
and there's so much beauty in that. And so now, because I can sit in the sauna that's super, super hot, now as a sales rep, when I have to
Mm,
make extra calls or I have to go close a deal or deal with a
mm,
frustrated customer because I went through that sauna experience and I promised myself not to give up, that makes that call to the customer or that frustrated customer, it makes it a breeze. And
mm,
so these are the types of things where, we really want to bridge the gap and really, try to make it super, super simple and understanding to understand how that can relate to this. If
mm.
I'm making sense here.
Yeah, and yes, I do think it's funny because as men, I think we always want it's like, oh, what's the ROI on me spending a weekend and all? But I think beyond like all of like the business of like, oh, this is gonna help me make more money. Like, yes, like that'll happen naturally because of the confidence will improve, being direct, like your delivery, setting boundaries, etc. But I think more importantly, it's like dude, it's just rare to find like real good, like genuine dudes that you can have like a real honest conversation with and not like front and not be like, oh, I'm a macho, like everything is cool. It's like, nah, nah, everything isn't cool. Like these are some of the things I'm actually like real life dealing with, and this is kind of who I am. Take it or leave it. And I think that is worth more than any sort of like, oh, I'm gonna have more confidence, which means I'll make an extra 25,000 a year. I think I think that'll happen because you feel cared for and you feel you have a safe space to like actually find yourself. I think to me that's the most important thing.
And to go off, just to piggyback off what he said, absolutely, I think the ROI is priceless. That being said, the fact that we're doing a podcast about it, which
Yeah.
this was not my idea. This was your idea. This was Evan's idea. I just happen to be on it right now, right? So this is also me pushing an edge right now. It's
Mm,
my first LinkedIn Live, right? This does have a business aspect to it, and
true.
so why I say that because, right, business does happen. Business deals do get done, and we're not the first person group to think of something like this. Multi-million dollar deals get done at events like this. It's kind of like, can you, like, how people
Mm,
go golfing, they take the customer out golfing and stuff like that. Think about golfing with the customer for like 2 days straight, but doing cool,
mm,
in my opinion, cooler things than that.
hmm,
More intimate, more deeper things, a variety of different things.
mm,
So it really breaks down a lot of barriers.
mm,
And then imagine like when we're going into the sauna, into the fire, literally, right? Because there's coals burning in the sauna. We're going into the fire when we're coming across all these uncomfortable situations, and we're coming out on the other side of that. The level of trust that gets built between two people
mm.
is very strong,
Yeah.
very strong.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Edwin and I drove back. So I drove him to his in-laws in South Jersey. And even on that like drive, because of the safe space, because of the vulnerability that was created, right, on Sunday when we went back, we've had like the deepest and realest conversations ever, right? I shared with him basically all of my insecurities, all of my stuff, and he was firm and he held me accountable and it's like, hey, like I'm not gonna let you off the hook. Like, hey, these are some things that need to be addressed. But it was done from love, right? It was done from like genuine um so yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to say is like Edwin and I are close, right? But what this took us to an even deeper level, and I have no doubt Edwin and I will do some business together at some point, right? Because we have very similar alignments in terms of our visions and what we want to create for the world. But yeah, it's like that, and then Edwin and I worked at LinkedIn together for like, multiple years, but I would say like that single weekend was probably like as much as us spending like 6 months together in the normal workforce, right? And how we were able to engage with each other.
I'll
But
definitely agree. So bring this back to you, right? Whoever may be watching this, whether it's a few hundred, whether it's one person, whoever sees this, I'm glad you're here. Um, if you're a person that would like more accountability in your life, right, that wants to be held accountable, that feels like you have more inside of you, more potential, whether it's a promotion or you as a father, you as a husband, or whatever it is, right? And there's just more there, and you just feel like maybe there's somewhat of a gap and you really want to get there, this is a space for you, right? If you're looking for answers, if you want to connect more with yourself, if you're looking for brotherhood, right? A place where maybe you feel like maybe feel like now you don't quite belong. Maybe you're having some sort of conscious awakening, and the things that used to be attractive to you are no longer attractive to you. You want something that feels more meaningful.
Hmm.
This is a space for you. So I'm calling you in, welcoming you in, and I know that if you decide to step into this container, you will leave with things that you or I can't even imagine.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It it's interesting because that week was probably like that month was probably like the hardest month of my life, I would say to date. And it was perfect because I didn't even know I needed it, right? I was just like, hey, I trust you, Edwin, and like, he's a good dude, and I left with like, whoa, like unconsciously, I didn't even know I was doing this, but unconsciously, I just didn't trust men, which there's like that's 50% of the world, right?
Mm.
And I left with just feeling like, huh, like I can't believe I unconsciously was holding on to that, and
Yeah.
that was my truth, that was my reality.
Yeah.
And ever since then, not only have I been able to do more business with men, but just I'm able to just trust myself, and that was because I was able to dig deeper into like my why, have that safe space. And honestly, it's like for everyone else who's in super busy New York City area, it's just nice to get out of the city, right? And just be able to like unwind and decompress and
Mhm.
the go go go. So it was a perfect balance of push and pull where there were times where I was uncomfortable, and then there were also times where I was also very relaxed. I was like, oh, this is nice. Like I don't have to be on, I don't have to be doing and on all the time. It was nice to just be able to just be.
Yeah, and I just want to go back to something you said about trust and trusting other men.
Mhm.
Um, that is such a common thing that comes up in this space. I mean, it's true for myself. It's true for, I mean, I don't want to put a number on it, but I want to say 90% of the men that come into this space have had issues with trusting other men, trusting the masculine. Um, and that's such a big thing, right? Because if you work anywhere, most likely that there's men there, and so to your point, also too, I noticed that for myself, right, with working with other men, became a lot easier.
Hmm.
There's a lot more harmony.
Hmm.
There's a lot more flow.
Hmm.
Things were getting done quicker because I trusted them, I trusted myself, and I trusted that uh, I just didn't question it. So without the
Hmm.
questions, it was just about movement and accomplishing whatever the mutual goal was.
Hmm.
And by the way, I had more fun doing it.
Hmm.
So that's a big thing, So somebody, if anybody's watching this, and when you hear about the words trusting men, trusting people in general, and something tightens up within your body, right, which is telling you that there's some level of not being at peace with trust.
Hmm.
This is a great space to develop that. It's a safe space, which will help you immensely with trusting not just men, but the universe and
Hmm.
what's in store for you.
Hmm. Yeah, that's pretty deep.
Yeah.
Um, and just a few teasers because I think it'll be interesting. I think some of the things that I thought was interesting as well was like going into the cold water, right? Like the ice bath
Mhm.
experience was interesting. The um yeah, there was a like I think you guys called it like activation,
Yeah,
right? Like
activation.
primal activation was different. Never have done anything like that before. That was certainly it was cool to be like these are just memories that like I'll just remember, right? It's like these are priceless memories, like as you said. Um, being able to at night, right? And just being, I mean, the Catskills are beautiful, right? So just like being out in nature, even like the hike was amazing. And then the fire, what's that called? The fire,
Fire pit.
yeah, the fire pit was cool. Yeah, that I mean, especially for for me, like I don't really do stuff like that too often, so it's just like so memorable, you know. I would say like most of my friends are like city people, so we're used to doing city things. So anyone who's like a city person, like this is certainly will be nice for you to get out of the city and just have a change of scenery as well.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I'm losing my train of thought because you're saying so many good things. So the event is Saturday
Mm,
and Sunday, July 13th and July 14th. If any of this resonated with you, I definitely invite you in. I welcome you in. Safe space to meet some other good men, other good brothers, because I'm sure
mm.
you will make at least one meaningful connection there. And the ROI from it is priceless. So calling it in, and if you're watching, appreciate you being here, and I hope to see you on the other side. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jason. Oh, so just a little bit more details. So yeah, it's Saturday from 10 a.m. to Sunday at 4 p.m. And yeah, so there's gonna be a bunch of co-facilitators. So you, Edwin, Arster,
Caleb,
Caitlin,
yeah,
and Michael.
Mike Denny,
Yeah, Mike
yeah,
Dennedy.
yeah, and all the details about the location are in the description of this LinkedIn Live. So feel free to check that out. You can message David, you can message myself, or any of the other facilitators if you have questions. Um, but yeah, looking forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, and the website is spelled Rituals of Man.
Yeah,
So with an S, rituals with an S of man with an AN.com.
yeah.
And then yeah, you'll find all the details there. But yes, and feel free to reach out to any of us if you have any additional questions.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, David.
Yeah, good times.
Absolutely.
Okay, let me